Welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. You guys, welcome to the Karen Kenney Show. I'm super duper excited to be here with you today. And we're just going to dive right into this sucker. Okay, so if you're new here, hi, welcome. I'm so happy to have you. If you've been around the block with me a few times, then you already know this about me, that I am a writer. And even though I do a lot of different things for work, I'm what's considered a multi-passionate person. Some people call it a multi-potentialite, whatever. How I most identify probably is as a writer and as a storyteller and as a communicator, right? Like hence the podcast. I can run my mouth, but I can also like write some words down, you know. So so being a writer, what you may not know if you're new here, and if you are new here, hello, welcome. Thank you for being here. But if you've been around the block with me for a little bit, you know already that I am a writer, that I am working on a memoir, I'm working on a book. And when you set out onto this task of writing a book, it can totally paralyze you with fear. Now, if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm not a writer, why should I give a shit? Just trust me, hang in there, stick with me. I'm going to share some things that are absolutely going to apply to like universal life of being a human, right? I'm just coming at it from this angle. But it can feel really big and really scary. So you try to figure out like, how am I going to get this monstrosity of a thing done? Because if you really just think I have to write how many words, how many pages, how many chapters, it's so easy to get paralyzed, to get stuck in your tracks, to like self-sabotage. And we're going to get to that in a minute. So you try to find different ways of kind of entering into the project without feeling completely overwhelmed, you know? And so one of the things you do is you start to look at like what the writers, the great writers who have come before you, like what is their writing practice, or what do they recommend, or what do they do? And there's a lot of information out there. You know, some writers will tell you hit a certain word count or hit a certain page count. You got to write this many number of words, right? And when you think about a page of typed words is like 250 words is about, right? Equal to a page, you know, and then you go, okay, I need to get this many words, which equals this many pages, is all these things. Then sometimes people will say, don't even worry about writing good pages, just write crappy pages, right? And I've heard my mom, like other writers that I follow, talk about this. Everybody from Stephen King to Andre Dubus to Ryan Holiday, who I'm a big fan of. I read a lot of his books. They've talked about this process, right? And even those things though can start to feel overwhelming because you put these what's the word I'm looking for? These metrics, right? You put these goals, like I got to hit this many things or otherwise it's just all shit, or I let myself down. And it can be really easy to self-sabotage yourself with disappointment in yourself. And so in other episodes of this podcast, and this is where these are going to apply to you as well, right? I've done two different podcasts that kind of talk about this concept in slightly different ways. And I'll tell you what those are. But the first one I'll refer to is episode 281, where I talked about breaking things down. And I talked about a process called Kaizen. It's Kaizen. I'm pretty sure they used Kaizen at Toyota when they were starting to figure out how to make really good and reliable cars. The goal of the company was to practice in this way, which is this. Kaizen is continuous improvement through small incremental steps. To just do a little bit each day to get better. And over time, that stuff builds up. I think of it like compound interest, right? First, you think, oh, I'm just putting $20 a week or whatever it is, $20 a month, $20 a week, $100 a month into my savings account. It might not seem like a big deal, but every little bit that you put into your savings account, not only do you make money, like make interest on that money, then you start to make interest on the money and the interest, right? And that's how things grow. It might seem like teeny tiny small incremental steps, but those things create continuous improvement and continuous growth. And I know that Ryan Holiday has talked about this before. He recently did a blog post where he was saying that when he first started writing, he would be like, I'm going to try to write like 2,000 words a day. And then he was like, okay, no, now I'm going to try to write just two crappy pages a day, not even good ones, just like two crappy ones. He said, and then that metric even became like too much. And he said everything was getting managed and measured. And he said, that metric of just writing a certain number of pages. In his words, he says, the problem with measuring output in pages is that it implies that adding pages is what you should be doing every day. And that's not what the goal is, he says. For him, the goal is making a positive contribution every day. And he says this is the one question he asks himself at the end of every day. Did I make a positive contribution to my writing today? I think this is such a fantastic question, this idea of making a positive contribution. Now, let's take it away from writing for a moment. For you, it might apply in your life like this. Did I make a positive contribution, right, to my bank account today, right? Or my savings account? Maybe you have a goal to save a certain amount of money because you want to have an emergency fund, or you want to take a vacation, or you want to buy somebody a gift, or treat yourself to something, whatever it is. Did I make a positive contribution today? Now, the positive contribution might be that you actually put some pennies aside, right? You put some dollar bills aside and you put some bucks in the bank account. But the positive contribution might be that you also didn't go and buy that $8 friggin' cafe latte and croissant or whatever, you know what I mean? Maybe the positive contribution to it was that you saved money by not spending money, like you made your own lunch at home or whatever it is, right? So you break it down into these little tiny steps. And we can apply this, like I said, to everything. We can apply it to writing. We can apply it to fitness. Because one of the things that our brains love to do, and as humans we love to do, is we think that if the contribution, right, if our positive contribution wasn't big, then it didn't matter, right? We do this all or nothing thinking. And this is one of the biggest ways that we sabotage ourselves, that if we didn't do a workout for 45 minutes, that it doesn't count. So we'll say, oh, I only had 10 minutes. What was 10 minutes going to do? So I just didn't work out, or I didn't take the walk around the block, or I didn't move my body because I didn't have enough time. And we do this as writers too sometimes. We convince ourselves that the only way to be productive is I need these big chunks of time where I'm going to be completely uninterrupted and I'm going to go into my little writing studio or my office or my space, and I just need all this time in order for it to matter. And it's just not true. You know, one of my beloved friends and he's also a writing mentor of mine, Andre Dubus III. He talks about that, how he wrote one of his books was, he was either doing construction during the day and like bartending at night or whatever. This is when his kids were really young. He's like, they were broke, he was married, he was broke. And I don't know if he had I don't know if he only had one child at the time. But the point of the story is that he used to write by pulling over and parking at this cemetery. And in like 20-minute chunks, he would just pull over, he would take his carpenter's pencil, and he would write down in his notebook, right? Or whatever piece of paper he was writing on. I think it was like a Mead notebook, like one of the composition books. And he would scribble with his, carpenter's pencil after his shift in between going to his next job or going home. He'd pull over into the cemetery. And with those 20 minutes, that's how he got the book done. It was like, bit by bit, bird by bird, as Annie Lamott would say, right? If you're a writer and you haven't read Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. But we underestimate what those little things built up over time can do for us. And when we go into all or nothing thinking, right, then again, the brain will find 1,000 reasons why. So there might be a day, let's say, and I'll do this for myself sometimes too. If I know I'm going to have a really hard time squeezing in like a 45-minute workout or a long walk or whatever the thing is, I'll be like, man, so our driveway is like pretty steep. Like my sweetie today, he's going to go out and he's going to like do the driveway, like training his legs, like coming uphill, uphill, uphill. So maybe I can't go out and I can't do like, a 45-minute run or walk or whatever, but I can get my ass outside and I can walk up and down that hill 5 times, right? You know what I mean? Or even sitting at my desk throughout the day sometimes, I'll like set a timer and I'll be like either on the half hour or the hour. I'll stand up, right? I'll do 5 minutes of stretching, or I'll do like, body weight squats, or like whatever. It's like you can find ways to work in and meet your goals in little chunks, even if it doesn't feel ideal. You can ask yourself, like Ryan Holiday does, am I making a positive contribution? It's like, am I taking that money and putting a little bit in the bank? And the bank can be your health, the bank can be your well-being, the bank could be in fitness. It's like, even if you were saying, let's say you wanted to learn a new language, and your ideal is like, I'm going to sit down an hour every night and do it, and then all of a sudden life gets crazy, you're wicked busy, like you can't make it happen. Like, do you just give up on your dream, or maybe you just say, hey, in that 5 minutes that I have, or in that 10 minutes that I have, I'm still going to listen. I remember that I did an episode, I think it was episode 212, and it was called Little Hinges Swing Big Doors. And if you just take a look, right? Walk around your house, look at those tiny hinges on the edges of the doors, and think about think about the heavy lifting that those tiny little hinges are doing in opening those doors up. So it can be really, really, really easy to self-sabotage ourselves and say that I can't get it done because I'm not making a big enough, contribution. And even though I'm coming at it from the point of view of, starting with writing, this applies to our whole life, as I'm saying. So I wrote down some places, right? So I said, okay, so you can do it. You can apply this to writing. You can apply it to fitness. Don't just throw up your hands and say, oh, I didn't have time to go to the gym today. I don't know, stand in your kitchen, do some jumping jacks. It's like, oh, I couldn't get to yoga. That's okay. Sit your ass down while you're watching TV and stretch. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't have to be ideal circumstances for it to create compound interest in your life. If you want to practice, right? If you want to be more patient, let's say that you have really low patience. Oh my God, devil amen hands, do I get it? How do we get more patient? We practice being patient by 1,000 different opportunities throughout the day. Sitting at a red light, right? Waiting for your kids to put their shoes on. Whatever, like letting your dog sniff when he's outside, not just jerking them around and making them rush. I see so many dog owners who make their dogs rush on their walks because they don't know that sniffing is one of the best things for their brains and their bodies, and it helps them in so many ways, right? So if you want to become more patient, we practice being patient in these little micro movements. You want to become more confident. You just take little moments where you maybe like challenge yourself to increase your courage, to do something maybe not huge and scary, but maybe you take a little step. Maybe you look somebody in the eye. Maybe you firm your handshake. I don't know, like whatever it is for you. But this idea of making a positive contribution in the direction of your dream, in the direction of the person that you want to come, in the direction of your goal, not insisting that it's these huge goals like 2,000 words or 2 pages a day or whatever the thing is. It's like, no, did I just move forward, right? When we think about Kaizen again, continuous improvement through small incremental steps. And I was thinking about in the Bhagavad Gita. So as a yoga teacher, right, I'm pretty familiar with the Bhagavad Gita. I have read it multiple times. Like I can't quote like past major passages or anything, but I'm very familiar with the story. And so I love this from the Bhagavad Gita, right? So it's in chapter 2 and it's verse 40. And I love this. And it says this. So we're talking here, like, as a spiritual mentor, people will often say, like, how do I know I'm making progress on the spiritual path? Or I didn't get to, do my DSP for like 30 minutes today or whatever today. Like, is it just a waste? It's just a waste of time. So they'll throw up their hands and just say, well, I just didn't do it. So I didn't do my meditation because I didn't have half an hour. I didn't have 20 minutes or I didn't have whatever. And so they just either don't do it or they feel like whatever they did was a lame attempt, like it didn't count, right? And so listen to this, though. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says this: on this path, effort never goes to waste, and there is no failure. Even a little effort toward spiritual awareness will yield protection from the greatest fear. You guys, on the path, on the spiritual path, no effort ever goes to waste. It all counts. even a little effort towards spiritual awareness will yield protection, right? And it's so fantastic. And one of my teachers, Ashwaran, says that this is one of the most memorable verses in the Gita for him. And he says it's applicable to every aspect of human life. And it says, when we meditate within for even a short period of time every day, the effort is not wasted. Every little bit, when you are allowing yourself to bring your mind back to love, to bring your mind back to peace, to bring your attention back to kindness, because that's the work, is to be incrementally. You want to be more kind and compassionate, then you practice small, teeny steps of doing it. You're not all of a sudden going to turn around, right? Your personality like overnight like that. It rarely happens. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's certain things in life you do cold turkey, right? Some people, though, have learned, right, to quit smoking by making a positive contribution of smoking slowly one less cigarette a day from their pack. And then they get down to one a day, and then eventually they can let that fall away. The positive contribution, you would think like, well, smoking 2 cigarettes is a positive contribution. I'm like, it's better than a whole fucking pack. You know what I'm saying? So it's like not ideal, yes, but slowly but surely we can make positive efforts in the direction that we are trying to get to. Whether you're trying to create new habits, be different, right? Like maybe there's a personality, a characteristic of your personality that doesn't win you any, doesn't help you out, doesn't win you any awards, right? Doesn't help you out in your relationship. So these can be really positive things. And even in A Course in Miracles, right? Ken Wapnick, who's a teacher he's dead now, but he was a teacher of A Course in Miracles. And I remember Ken once saying, people will often say to him, like, how do I know I'm making progress on the spiritual path? And he used to say, you're making progress in the spiritual path, not by never, because we think it has to be all or nothing again. He says, it's not that you never take a detour into fear again. He goes, how you know you're making progress is by how quickly you recognize that you have taken a detour into fear. It's not that it never, ever, ever happens again. And you can think of taking a detour into fear as losing your peace, right? Losing your ability to like choose who and how you want to be. Because when we take detours into fear, we are usually trapped. We are really usually hooked by our ego, and we're about to do something that is not going to be a true representation of who we really are, which is love. So when we take detours into fear, when we go out of our right mind and we go into the place that is not peaceful, that is not loving, that is not compassionate, that is not kind, right? And we're not always going to be there all the time. But instead of beating ourselves up, it's like when we recognize, it's like that pause, right? When we put a comma in our commentary, when we put a comma, a pause in our thinking, and we realize like, oh, I could make a different choice here. I don't have to keep, making a contribution in the negative. I don't have to go into the red, right? I don't have to go into the red and make some withdrawals that like do and say some things that I am not going to be able to take back, right? So this question of, am I making a positive contribution? You get to decide what that is for you and towards which thing. Like I said, you can apply this to a project like writing or fitness or learning or your savings account, or like I said, building patience or making better connections with your family, or maybe you're working on forgiveness or whatever the thing is. It's not, did I do 2,000 words or all these pages, or did I run 5 miles? It's like, did I get my ass out of the chair and get outside? Did I get some fresh air? Did I move my body? Because it all adds up. And that's the thing, is we often don't, we have this way of saying it doesn't count. And it's like, even like Americans with supersizing, right? We like everything big and bold and whatever. But magical things can happen in small, like as Linda Ty will say, I've had Linda on the show. If you haven't listened to those episodes with Linda Ty, go check them out. She's fantastic. She's a lot of things, but she's a trauma therapist. She's a storyteller. She's a teacher. She's a brilliant human being. But she calls it sip, sip, So rather than like fire hosing ourselves or guzzling, thinking that that's the only way to get better or to heal, we can sip little tiny bits. Okay. And Zeno is often having said this. He says, well being is realized by small steps. Zeno, one of the Stoic teachers, right? Well being is realized by small steps, but is truly no small thing. So even though it's small steps, it's a small positive contribution, it's no small thing. So take a few moments and take a look at your life and notice when you have blurted out those words, right? We can do it the other way too, is like, I already ate the cookie. I might as well eat the whole package, the whole sleeve, right? Or, oh, I already had the piece of cake. I might as well eat the whole thing. It's like, no, you can make a positive contribution by deciding to stop right now. You already said the one mean thing. Maybe you want to pause your big mouth, right? And boop, beep, 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 back it up. Back it up. Clock what you just did. You took a detour into fear. You kind of went out of your right mind and you said some shit. You might want to stop while you're ahead, right? So making a positive contribution can look like a lot of things. And if you're a fellow writer and a fellow creative and you're trying to get a project done, this is such a great thing that you can do is yes, it's fine. Some people love to track metrics, right? But for me, it's also like, do I just want to accumulate a bunch of 2 pages that are shitty, or do I want to take and write maybe one really good sentence or one really good paragraph and keep moving slowly but incrementally improving, making a positive contribution? And like I said, you can apply this to your health, to your emotional well-being, to your physical well-being, to your financial well-being, to your spiritual well-being, right? Like all of it. Mental, physical, spiritual, and mental, physical, emotional as well, right? So if you've been struggling with some things, your well-being can happen in small steps. You don't have to wake up and say, today's the day. I'm going to drink 96 ounces of water and I'm only going to eat this and I'm going to work and I'm going to do this every. No, you're not. You're probably not. You're probably not. You're probably not. And the one of the final things I'll say, especially to writers, is that one of the things we'll say is, well, I'm going to wait until I have a chunk of time and I'm going to wait until I can. And I've done it myself too. I've said these words too. I had to clock what I was doing. I had to recognize what I was doing, right? But again, it can be applied to just about anything. I only have $5, so I'm not going to put it in my savings account. No, it all counts. But for writers, one of the lies that we'll tell ourselves is, I'm going to wait. It's I always say, when I, then I, when I, then I. When I get this, I'll finally do this. I did a whole podcast on this a wicked long time ago. Maybe I'll do another one because it's important. It's important to clock when we're doing this. But here's the thing. As a writer, if you are pulling that on yourself and saying, well, I'll wait until I get a big chunk of time. Let me tell you something. If you are not writing now, this delusion, this illusion, this thing you tell yourself of like, when I get that time, then I'll. No, you won't. If you're not writing now, you probably won't be writing then as well. So I'd rather you just take a little bit of time, get some words down on the page, stop moving in the direction of your project, move it, because your book has its own soul, right? Like your writing, your pieces, your poetry, your whatever you're creating, right? It has its own desire and it has its own energy. It has its own spirit. And I always say this, it wants to come through. But you got to be open and available. Like you got to be open for business. You know what I'm saying? So I'd rather you just sit your ass down and write a little something rather than nothing. Make a positive contribution, whether it's in your writing, in your relationships, in your bank account, in your fitness, your health, your well-being, your mental and emotional well-being, a little bit every day. Move in that direction because those little hinges are going to swing open those big doors. Now, if you're still here, I feel like I've been talking really fast. I probably have been. I get worked up sometimes. I get really excited. But here's the other thing I want to say before I forget. When you make those little incremental, right, steps, sometimes it helps you. It's like you can slowly start to tiptoe past the inner critic. You can start to tiptoe past the the voices in your head that are like, who are you to think that you can do this? Or da 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 da. Because when you're just taking those little things, right? I'm not saying you don't swing big for the fences once in a while, but I'm just saying if you do daily little steps, right? You up your steps. Maybe you start and you say, all right, I'm making this up. I'm going to get 1,000 steps today. And then the following week, you're like, hey, I'm going to bump this up to 1,500 or 2,000 steps. And before you know it, you guys, you're at 6,000, you're at 10,000, whatever the goal is. And that little sleeping monster, right? The little snoring monster that loves to wake up and stop you when you dream big. You can just kind of like start to tiptoe past your fear and past that little bastard that lives up in your brain. But if you're listening, listen, if you're a writer and you're listening and you're local, especially if you're local to like Concord, New Hampshire, I am starting what's called Write Club. I have been doing writing workshops since 2004. I've been doing these for a wicked long time, but I'm starting a new thing called Write Club. And I'm going to be doing one locally at the end of May on Saturday, May 30th at the 11th letter writing gallery. And the goal is we already picked out the dates all the way up until October is to do it once a month in person. They're 3-hour workshops. You can find out more by going to Karen Kenney, Kenney, KarenKenney.com, right? / Write Club, no dash, no space, just KarenKenney.com / Write Club. And you'll learn all about it, all about the process that we use. This is really a love-centered approach to writing. You get to spend time together. You get to learn about craft. You get to write and read your work out loud. So you get to hear your own voice, find out where your own genius lies. This is such a fantastic gathering, and I love doing these workshops. I'm a certified gateless writing instructor, and it informs a lot of what I do, along with other teachers that I've studied with over the years, and it's really just so fantastic. And of course, I bring my own full self, all of my years of experience in everything from yoga to spiritual mentoring to whatever, right, to writing and creativity. So all of these things kind of come together in this beautiful 3-hour workshop. And then eventually, I'm also going to start maybe doing some online for folks who are not local and can't make it in person. But if you have any questions about that, just reach out to me. There's always a contact form on my website. You can go there. You can also shoot me an email, Karen@KarenKenney.com. I'm pretty easy to get in touch with. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode has been helpful to you in some way. This is me doing my best to make a positive contribution today to you, and hopefully you found it helpful in some way. So wherever you go, may you leave the animals and yourself and the people and the planet and the environment better than how you found it. Wherever you go, may you and your energy and your presence and your love and your positive contribution be a blessing. Bye.